Hey, Joe on the radio, 826 on AM 970 The Answer, around the country, around the world on AM970TheAnswer.com. Morgan Ortagus is a former spokesperson for the United States State Department, currently running for Tennessee's 5th Congressional District. Kind enough to join us this morning. Morgan, welcome back to the show. Great to have you with us always.
Thank you, sir. Good to be on.
Well, Morgan, how's the run going? I mean, it's nonstop. Are you digging it? Going for that congressional seat in Tennessee? How you doing in that regard, Morgan?
You know, it's so great because it's so encouraging to meet people, here in Tennessee's 5th Congressional District, and to talk to them about their hopes and their plans for the future, what they want to see for their children and their grandchildren. And I'm just really encouraged. The more that I meet people, the more events that I go to. You know, it's easy to look at the headlines and just think, gosh, this country's going to hell in a handbasket. Yeah. And then you meet these amazing, wonderful patriots, and your faith is really restored.
Yeah, I love that you're going into office like this, Morgan. I think it's a great future for you, and we so support everything that you're doing. Could you give us your take on what you... Well, we appreciate it. You know, we're just trying to make common sense of it all, you know, and my goodness gracious, I watch it and every morning I layer it back on this radio show, Morgan, and I go, how is this happening? How are we, and then this, if I can go here for a second, because I know you unapologetically speak about your support, or at least about your friend, Donald Trump. And now you God forbid you can't say that. And I'm saying, and I'll say for the record, when Donald Trump was president, none of this would be happening. Not inflation, not the border, not the crime, not anything, not Putin. Putin was scared silly of Donald Trump. But, oh my gosh, you can't say that. I mean, am I right when I say this? There's no way this would have happened if President Trump was still in office.
Well, it didn't happen when it was in office. Listen, it was just like whenever the Secretary of State, Tony Blinken, and the National Security Advisor, Jake Sullivan, first met with the Chinese, and the Chinese talked down to them and embarrassed them in front of the media. And people asked me, well, what would Pompeo have done? And I said, well, it just never would have happened under him. I can't even tell you. It's not a scenario that could have ever happened, so I can't answer that question. And by the way, Joe, for your listeners who hear me calling in, I think you and I talk every couple of weeks. Yep. For your listeners who want to support, they can go to morganortagus.com. That's Ortagus is ORTAGUS.com. So going back to Russia, thank you for letting me get in the plug in, my friend. But going back to Russia, I got to say what I just try to do, because, you know, this was my job as, working for Trump and representing his State Department, is I just argue policy and I argue the facts. And the facts are, under Donald Trump's presidency, he sent over 60 diplomats and spies home. He sent over $1.4 billion in lethal military aid to Ukraine. By my rough estimate count, there was over 30 different sanctions and indictments coming out of the Trump administration geared towards the Russians. And we did a lot of things. I think you and I talked about this a couple of weeks ago. You know, the Russians were cheating on the INF treaty, and we said, we're going to get out. And by the way, this was over Democratic lawmaker objectives. And we said we are simply not staying in a treaty that Russia refuses to participate in, and they continue to violate, they continue to cheat. And even at the end of the administration, Marshall Billingsley was negotiating with the Russians over the New START treaty, another arms control treaty. They came to us with all of these demands. We said, listen, it's not happening. And the Russians really wanted to get New START renewed. So what does the Biden administration do, Joe? They come in and they renew Restart. They get nothing for it. No new concessions, no negotiations. So why does all that matter? You and I talked about Nord Stream 2. All of these key pieces lead up to where we are now. And I think help us, and if you want me to answer this, help us think about where we go forward from here.
Yeah, and where do we go? Because and we could start maybe, Morgan, with I hesitate to call President Trump president, because this seems to me like just a conglomerate of puppeteers running this White House, and that's me speaking, not Morgan. And we shake our head. What is Biden going to possibly say that will get us out of this mess that we're in?
Right. So it's not about, and it's interesting that you said, what can Biden possibly say? For me at this point, and I've said this all along, it's not about what they say. Mm-hmm. It's about what they do. And I have continued to urge for the Biden administration to stop with the half measures on the sanctions. Don't do a couple of banks delisting them from SWIFT and sanctioning them. Go all in. If you're going to do it, don't do half measures.
Exactly.
Go all in. Nord Stream 2, Germany has suspended it. We should push Germany and say this isn't a suspension. This should be canceled outright. Because I do worry that some of this stuff that's suspended or on hold can be reversed quite easily in negotiations, and then I don't think Putin learns a real price. And by the way, I think the Europeans were fantastic over the weekend and yesterday. They're really starting to hit the Russians where it hurts. However, Joe, what's important to remember is, yes, I'm happy that Germany has announced that they're finally going to start, spending realistically on their defense department, building up their military again. I'm happy about all of these announcements that the Europeans are making. But we have to remember, Joe, that it took an invasion for this to happen, right? The Biden administration said that their goal was deterrence, to deter Russia from invading Ukraine. That failed. Any of your listeners can go on to Twitter right now. They can look at the hundreds of thousands of refugees that are going to nearby countries, thousands of people killed already that we know of. It's hard to get the statistics in, but we know that thousands have been killed. Cities are being bombed by the Russians. It should not have taken this level of a wake-up call. President Trump, and you and I have talked about this before, this is why he tried to demand that NATO allies pay their fair share, that everyone get in the fight together. And unfortunately, it has now taken an invasion, a ground war in Europe, for everybody to wake up to, you know what? Maybe we can appease a dictator. Now, why is that important, Joe? It's important because we have to learn this lesson from China. We cannot, and I hope the Chinese are watching too, at how the West can mobilize when we decide to come together, which the Europeans, not Joe Biden, have led on that front. But we cannot wait for China to invade Taiwan or any other neighbor in order to rally the troops and take the threat of the Chinese Communist Party seriously. If there's any lesson that we learn from this, it's that waiting for Russia to invade Ukraine for harsh penalties and to contain them was a fatal mistake for many lives. And we should not wait for China to invade Taiwan to take their threat seriously.
And what do you think, with your expertise, Morgan Ortagus, working with the great Mike Pompeo, do you think China does indeed make that move while they can into Taiwan?
Very hard to predict these things. So who knows? I think that they are probably feeling, Xi Jinping, the leader of China, the leader of the Chinese Communist Party, is probably feeling a little buyer's remorse for his buddy-buddy relationship with Putin right now. And so he, like the rest of us, can see the West, come together to push back on the Russians. But the bigger challenge, Joe, as it relates to China and Taiwan versus Russia and Ukraine is most of our allies, their number one trading partner is China, right? And this is, again, why they've been hesitant to join us in really countering the Chinese Communist Party in the way that we need to. So it's even more important to get this right in China, but we need our friends and allies to take this threat seriously.
Yeah. Morgan Ortagus, ORTAGUS.com for Congress, the Tennessee's 5th Congressional District. Morgan, before we let you go, and we so appreciate your expertise, and I say very kindly because we have the best audience, I'm not being patronizing, they're so locked into everything. And they don't, and you know what, they don't get, you can't pull the wool over their eyes. What do we have to look out for? Because when they shuffle Joe Biden out, forgive me, when they shuffle Joe out tonight, and he does that State of the Union, they're going to it's going to be all distraction. It's going to be distraction, and a lot of it's going to be really false facts, maybe lies. What should we watch out for tonight that are not truths that they're going to try to spew upon us, Morgan?
Oh, gosh, so many. Listen, something that I am very concerned about, there's two things. I'll give you one foreign policy and then one domestic.
Okay.
On the foreign policy side, I am going to watch very closely for what Biden says about the Islamic Republic of Iran. Trump got out of what he called one of the worst deals ever made, which was the JCPOA. Your listeners will remember that. Mm-hmm. I am hearing really incredibly concerning things. By the way, in Vienna right now, the Biden administration, their team is negotiating with the Iranians, with the Russians at the table. It is beyond ridiculous. The Russians should be treated as a pariah state right now, and Biden and Blinken and their teams are giving the Russians the credibility that they do not deserve at the negotiating table in Vienna right now. And what I think they're going to do in order to get back into the JCPOA is forgive or take a ton of people off of terrorism sanctions lists. By the way, these people continue to fund and abet and aid terrorism. They haven't stopped terrorism, but Blinken's team seems to be giving away the House. And Congress, and listen, this is one of the reasons I'm running. Congress is going to need to step up and tell the Biden administration, no, you can't do this. So watch that out for Iran. On the domestic side, listen, the two biggest things that I'm looking to see is, does Biden even address the border? Our border is being overrun with drugs and illegal immigrants and human trafficking. It is a travesty. It's a national security emergency, what Biden is allowing to happen at our border. So does he address it? And then I think, secondly, does he address the fact that he stopped energy independence in the United States? Will they open up new leasing, for drilling, for oil? Will they allow new exploration? I mean, over the weekend, the White House press secretary did not signal anything positive on this front. She basically said, no, we want to move towards, climate change and green energy.
Yeah.
Listen, all of that is well and good, but our nation's national security has to be the number one priority of this administration. And if they don't open up exploration, open up leases, open up pipelines, we are going to be in a world of hurt. And to continue to buy Russian energy during this crisis, to continue to allow them at the negotiating table in Vienna is really, it's unconscionable. I don't have words for what they're doing.
It's so true. 500,000 barrels a day from Russia we buy. It's unbelievable. Morgan Ortagus, keep the fight. God bless you. Godspeed with everything. Again, MorganOrtagus.com. And please come back anytime, Morgan. Love having you on the show.
Will do. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Morgan Ortagus right there. MorganOrtagus.com. She is running for Tennessee's 5th Congressional District.